When three arrogant alien exchange students visit Earth on a safe tour of the Amazon, they laugh at humanity's primitive death world. Protected by invincible tech and superior attitudes, they mock the humans who evolved here. Until a single geomagnetic storm strips everything away. Stranded, powerless, and hunted by the jungle itself, they're about to learn exactly why Earth is called a death world. The hard way. Before we dive deeper into the story, please subscribe. It costs you nothing but helps stellar HFY allot the sleek diplomatic shuttle sliced through the upper atmosphere like a silver blade, engines humming with alien precision. Elias Thorne stood at the rear ramp, arms crossed over his scarred survival vest, eyes narrowed against the fierce equatorial sun. At 47, the weathered human instructor had survived enough controlled expeditions to know this one was a mistake. The Exchange Council had assured him the tour would be perfectly safe. Thorne called it tempting fate with arrogant children. 3 elite alien exchange students disembarked behind him, radiating the effortless superiority of species that had never tasted real adversity. Zarek, the haughty Vorian, descended first. Tall and regal, his iridescent emerald scales shimmered under the brutal sunlight. He adjusted his crystalline envirosuit with a dismissive flick of a clawed finger. "Quaint," he drawled, voice thick with disdain. "This gravity already feels oppressively heavy. How do your fragile humans not simply collapse under such constant burden?" Beside him, Mira, the curious luminari, tilted her delicate head. Her bioluminescent crest pulsed with soft azure light as 4 slender tentacles twitched excitedly. She scanned the impenetrable wall of green jungle ahead. Fascinating biomass density. The data streams described Earth's biosphere as inefficient and chaotic, yet this riot of life is vibrant in its primitiveness. Bringing up the rear lumbered Thrax, the stoic Draken. His 7-foot frame was covered in thick armored plates. He uttered no words, only a low grunt as Earth's 1.2 G pressed down on his shoulders like an invisible yoke. His dark, unblinking eyes swept across the dense canopy without expression. Thorne's jaw tightened. Rules are simple. Stay strictly inside the marked trail. Envirosuits on full seal at all times. No wandering, no heroics. This is the Amazon rainforest, not a padded simulation chamber. Zarek let out a sharp, metallic laugh. "Instructor Thorne, your concern is charming but entirely unnecessary. Our technology could survive a supernova. A little moisture and carbon-based vegetation will never breach a Class 7 containment field." Myra's crest flared brighter with enthusiasm. "I have already catalogued 17 new insect species just from the shuttle's passive sensors. This will be academically rewarding." Thrax simply nodded once, a silent sentinel of muscle and plate. They set off along the engineered path, portable force field projectors humming softly around the group. The air thickened rapidly, heavy with humidity that tasted of rot, rebirth, and hidden danger. Vines thicker than a human thigh coiled like sleeping pythons around ancient trees. In the distance, howler monkeys screamed warnings the aliens could not comprehend. Every breath felt alive, pressing against their lungs. 2 hours passed. Zarek's perfect posture cracked slightly. Sweat, genuine liquid beads, formed on his scaled brow despite the suit's climate control. "This gravity. It pulls at the very bones." "Welcome to Earth," Thorne muttered without sympathy. "Try running from a jaguar one day and you'll understand real pressure." Mira paused to examine a marching column of leafcutter ants. Such remarkable coordination. Their mandibles could shear through almost anything. Oh. A droplet of tree sap landed on one tentacle. The suit hissed, instantly neutralizing it. She giggled. "Even your natural toxins seem eager to interact." Thrax remained silent, but Thorne noticed the big Draken's breathing had grown heavier. His armored plates were beginning to chafe under the relentless gravitational load. Without warning, the sky darkened. Not ordinary clouds, something far more ominous. The shuttle pilot's voice crackled urgently over comms. "Instructor Thorne, orbital sensors detect a massive coronal mass ejection. Geomagnetic storm impact in 6 minutes. Recommend immediate extraction." Thorn's blood turned cold. Abort the tour. Back to the shuttle. Move. Zarek sneered. A mere solar wind? Our shields will. The first lightning bolt tore across the sky like the universe ripping open. The hovering shuttle, positioned 50 meters above the canopy for rapid pickup, shuddered violently. Its anti-grav emitters screamed in protest. A second, closer strike lit the entire jungle in electric blue. Run! Thorn roared, shoving the aliens forward. The ground trembled violently. Not an earthquake, a catastrophic landslide. Weeks of hidden rain had destabilized an entire hillside. Trees snapped like matchsticks as a roaring wall of mud, rock, and vegetation thundered straight toward them. Zarek's suit flared crimson with emergency protocols. Containment field at maximum. The shuttle systems died mid-maneuver as the geomagnetic storm fried every circuit. It plummeted, slamming into the slope above with devastating force. The impact triggered the final collapse. Thorn tackled Mira and Zarek behind a massive kapok tree root as the world exploded in brown fury. Thrax tried to brace himself, but the mudslide hit like a freight train. His armored body vanished into the surging torrent. Portable force field projectors exploded in showers of sparks. All advanced suits went dark instantly. Shields, comms, medical injectors, emergency beacons, everything died. A heavy, terrifying silence followed, broken only by dripping water and the ragged breathing of 3 aliens now feeling every crushing kilogram of Earth's merciless gravity for the first time. Thorn pushed himself up first, mud caking his face, combat knife already drawn. Everyone's still alive. Zarek coughed violently, scales cracked, his once pristine envirosuit hanging in useless shredded ribbons. This is impossible. Our technology is gone. Thorn finished grimly, eyes hard. Welcome to a genuine death world, kids. No safety nets. No second chances. Myra's crest had dulled to a sickly gray with shock. One tentacle hung limp and bruised. The biomass. It's moving. Everything around us is alive and moving. Thrax hauled himself from the mud, plates dented and cracked, breathing in painful gasps. Real fear flickered for the first time in his stoic eyes. Night was falling fast. And the jungle had just noticed its new, helpless visitors. Darkness swallowed the ruined jungle like a living predator. Elias Thorn moved first, slicing a broad palm frond with his belt knife and wrapping it around a resinous branch to create a crude torch. The single flame flickered defiantly against the crushing humidity, casting long, dancing shadows that seemed to reach for them. Stay close. Do not touch anything bright or sweet-smelling. And for the love of whatever gods you have, keep quiet. Sound carries here like a dinner invitation. Zarek tried to stand tall, but Earth's gravity bent his spine like a bow. His iridescent scales, once proud, were already dull and cracked. We are not primitives, Thorn. Our empires span stars while your kind hid in caves. We will simply walk to the nearest outpost. Nearest outpost is 70 kilometers through unbroken terrain, Thorn replied flatly, voice low. And you're already bleeding time. That gash on your side? Bioluminescent bacteria in the mud. They're eating your scales right now. Welcome to Earth's immune response. Mira whimpered softly, cradling her injured tentacle. Her bioluminescent crest had dimmed to a sickly, stuttering pulse. My suit's med nodes. They neutralized pathogens in nanoseconds. This burns, Elias. It actually burns through my tissue. Thrax said nothing, but his massive frame trembled with every breath. The 1.2 G crushed organs never designed for it. His cracked plates ground audibly as he shifted. They had salvaged almost nothing. Thorn's combat knife, a half-melted emergency flare, Myra's now useless datapad, and Zarek's ceremonial dagger, pretty but brittle. No comms. No shields. No hope of easy rescue. A low, guttural growl rolled through the undergrowth, close enough to raise every hair on Thorn's neck. Jaguar, he whispered. Big one. Doesn't fear anything that bleeds. Move. Now. They staggered forward into the black. Torrential rain began without warning, not drops but solid sheets that turned the ground into sucking sludge. Zarek slipped, crashing sideways into a thorn thicket. Razor barbs tore fresh gashes across his arm. He screamed, a high, undignified shriek that echoed through the canopy. "Quiet!" Thorn hissed, yanking him free. Blood welled instantly. "You just rang the dinner bell for every predator within a kilometer." Something massive crashed through the branches above. Not wings, something heavier. A troop of spider monkeys exploded away in panic. Behind them, yellow eyes reflected the torchlight. 1 pair. 2. 3. Hunting in coordinated silence. Myra's voice cracked with terror. "They are stalking us. Like the ants, but with teeth and intelligence." Thrax finally spoke, his gravelly voice strained. "We are the prey." They broke into a desperate, stumbling run. Gravity dragged at their limbs like chains. Leeches dropped from leaves, finding exposed alien skin. Mira began weeping quietly as one bloated on her crest. Zarek's scales sloughed in wet patches. Thrax's breathing grew ragged, like failing bellows. Lightning flashed. In the strobe light, Thorn spotted it ahead, a swollen river roaring like an angry god. The only crossing was a fallen tree, slick, narrow, 30 meters above whitewater depth. "Single file," Thorn ordered. "Eyes forward. Do not look down." Zarek went first, arrogance long shattered into trembling steps. Halfway across, his clawed foot slipped on moss. He hung by one hand, screaming as the river thundered below, trying to claim him. Thorn and Thrax lunged forward. Mira wrapped a tentacle around Thrax's waist as anchor. 410 endless, heart-stopping seconds they strained, muscles burning, joints screaming, until they hauled the Vorian to safety on the far bank. They collapsed, soaked, bleeding, lungs on fire. Thorn allowed only 30 seconds. "Shelter. Now!" Before the blood scent draws worse things. Under his sharp direction they hacked ferns and lashed branches with vines into a crude lean-to elevated on stilts. Thorn coaxed a small fire from damp wood using the flare as starter. The flames offered tiny warmth against the relentless downpour. Mira stared into the fire, crest flickering weakly. "Your people evolved here? Willingly? In this nightmare?" Thorn's smile was grim, torchlight carving hard lines on his mud-caked face. "Every single day for thousands of years. The ones who adapted became the apex. That's the secret your empires forgot." Zarek examined his ruined hands, voice hoarse. "I apologize for my earlier tone, instructor. This world does not care for titles or technology." Thrax nodded once, respect finally breaking through his stoic mask. "We are learning." But the night was far from over. A new sound joined the rain, something larger than any jaguar circling their pathetic shelter. Heavy footsteps. Low, rumbling breaths. Multiple creatures, working together. Thorn gripped his knife tighter, eyes scanning the darkness beyond the firelight. "Stay inside the light. They're testing us." Myra's injured tentacle throbbed visibly. Zarek clutched his broken dagger. Thrax raised a sharpened branch like a spear. The jungle had tasted their fear and blood. And it was hungry for more. Dawn brought no mercy, only thick steam rising from the jungle floor like the breath of a fevered beast. Elias Thorn woke first, every joint screaming in protest. The crude lean-to had held through the night, but the cost showed on all of them. He checked the aliens in the weak gray light. Zarek's emerald scales were mottled with angry red infection. Fever burned bright in his golden eyes, and patches of skin had begun to slough off. Myra's injured tentacle had swollen to twice its normal size, black veins crawling upward. Her bioluminescent crest flickered weakly, barely glowing. Thrax sat like a broken statue, armored plates cracked and leaking dark fluid. Each breath sounded labored under Earth's crushing gravity. "Up," Thorn said quietly but firmly. "We move or we die. That's the only math that matters here." Mira tried to rise and collapsed with a choked cry. I cannot. The pressure. My internal sacs feel like they are collapsing. Thorn knelt beside her, voice low and urgent. You adapt or you become fertilizer for the next cycle of life. Drink this. He handed her a hollowed bamboo cup filled with water he had boiled over the dying embers before dawn. It kills most of what wants to live inside you. Zarek drank next, gagging at the taste. Primitive poison. Saved more humans than your entire empire's medicine ever has, Thorn shot back. Now listen carefully. Today we push for the emergency beacon ridge, 12 kilometers east. Old human tech. Faraday caged. The storm might not have fried it completely. They broke camp in grim silence. Thrax took point, using his massive bulk to smash a path through the undergrowth. Mira followed, tentacles probing weakly for dangers. Zarek limped at the rear, his earlier arrogance replaced by desperate determination. The jungle attacked without pause. Black clouds of biting flies swarmed them, drawn to sweat and blood. Thorn smeared exposed skin with mud mixed with crushed camphor leaves. Natural repellent. Works until it doesn't. A deep, guttural roar echoed from the river valley below. Worse than jaguar, Thorn muttered. Cayman. Flooding pushed them onto land. They hunt in packs when desperate. They detoured uphill, the slope punishing their exhausted bodies. Zarek slipped on loose soil and rolled into a patch of stinging nettles. He screamed as microscopic barbs injected venom that felt like fire under his scales. Thorn hauled him out and applied another mud poultice. Pain means you're still alive. Use it to keep moving. By midday the heat became a physical hammer. Thrax finally broke his long silence, voice strained. Instructor. How do your young survive this hell? Thorn's laugh was short and bitter. Not all of them do. The ones who survive become harder. That's the Deathworld's gift, and its curse. Myra's crest brightened for the first time since the crash. Accelerated Darwinian selection. Your species is a living weapon forged in constant war with its own planet. A sudden rustle ahead froze them. Thorn signaled to stop. Through the leaves he saw it, a massive jaguar, sleek muscle and golden fur, easily 200 pounds, stalking parallel to their path. It had been tracking them for hours, patient and silent. Back slow, Thorn breathed. Too late. The cat exploded from cover in a blur of death. Thrax roared and met it head-on. Razor claws raked across his armored plates, drawing dark blood. Zarek lunged with a sharpened branch, stabbing wildly. Mira whipped her good tentacles around the jaguar's hind leg and yanked with surprising strength, throwing it off balance. Thorn's knife flashed in the dappled light, once deep into the shoulder, once across the throat. The jaguar died fighting, taking a chunk of Thrax's forearm with it in its final spasm. They stood panting over the corpse, covered in blood, both alien and predator. Zarek stared at his trembling hands. I helped kill it. With nothing but a stick. Thorn worked quickly, skinning a haunch and wrapping the meat in broad leaves. Protein. We eat tonight or we weaken further. Fire when we find safe ground. As they pressed onward, Mira asked the question weighing on all three. Why do you stay here, Elias? Why not flee this nightmare world? Thorn's eyes stayed locked on the trail. Because it made us who we are. Every scar, every hard lesson. Out in your soft galaxies, you forgot what real pressure feels like. We never did. That's why humans are the ones your empires call when the real monsters arrive. Night fell faster than expected. They built a better shelter this time, elevated platform in the crook of a massive tree, fire carefully shielded. Roasted jaguar meat tasted like victory and survival. But beyond the flames, multiple pairs of eyes reflected orange in the darkness. A pack, coordinated, patient, waiting for the fire to die. Thrax gripped his makeshift spear. We are learning, instructor. Zarek, voice hoarse from fever, added, and the lesson is more terrifying than any simulation. Myra's crest glowed softly. Yet. We are still alive. Thorn allowed the smallest grim smile. Tomorrow we cross the flooded valley properly. The beacon ridge is still 8 brutal kilometers away. And something bigger than jaguars has started stalking the stalkers. The jungle whispered its hunger through the rain. The third dawn arrived like a punishment. Rain fell in relentless silver needles, turning the jungle floor into a treacherous slurry of mud and decay. Elias Thorn woke with a start, ribs aching from the jaguar fight, and immediately checked his charges. The sight tightened his chest. Zarek could barely stand. Infection had spread across his emerald scales, turning them mottled black and yellow. Fever made his golden eyes glassy. Myra's injured tentacle had swollen into a grotesque club, black veins crawling toward her torso. Her bioluminescent crest pulsed erratically like a failing heartbeat. Thrax's wounded forearm had ballooned to twice its size, dark blood leaking from cracked plates with every movement. Yet the massive Draken remained silent, sharpening his makeshift spear with grim focus. Today we cross the Rio Negro tributary, Thorn announced, voice steady despite exhaustion. Current is lethal after the storms. One slip and you're gone. After that, 4 kilometers uphill to the beacon ridge. We push hard or we don't make it. Zarek laughed bitterly, the sound cracking into a cough. 4 kilometers. On your death world that might as well be 4 light years. They broke camp and marched. The jungle punished every step. Roots deliberately tripped them. Vines whipped like living lashes. A swarm of bullet ants found Zarek's leg. The pain hit like molten iron injected into muscle. He bit through his own tongue to stay silent, blood mixing with rain. Thorn crushed the ants and slapped on another mud poultice. Pain passes. Death doesn't. Keep moving. Myra's voice was a broken whisper. Your children. They play in this. Some do, Thorn replied. The weak ones don't reach adulthood. The survivors become the toughest bastards in the galaxy. By noon they reached the river. Brown water roared like an enraged beast, swollen and carrying entire trees like toothpicks. The only crossing was a precarious vine bridge Thorn had spotted earlier, narrow, slick, and deadly. Thrax went first, testing every inch with his massive weight. Halfway across, a submerged log slammed into the supports. The bridge lurched violently. Thrax roared, plates grinding, and hauled himself to the far bank with raw power. Zarek followed next, trembling. Gravity dragged at him like an anchor. Midway, his clawed grip slipped. He dangled above the whitewater fury, screaming as the river tried to swallow him whole. I cannot hold. Thorn was already crawling out. Mira, anchor me. He moved with desperate speed, knife between his teeth. One hand locked around Zarek's wrist. For 5 terrifying seconds they swung above the torrent, muscles burning, joints screaming. Myra's good tentacles wrapped Thrax's waist like a living rope. Together they hauled the Vorian to safety. Mira crossed last. Her tentacles gripped the vine with fading strength. She was almost across when a caiman the size of a small shuttle exploded from the water, jaws snapping shut on empty air where her trailing tentacle had been a heartbeat earlier. They collapsed on the far bank, hearts hammering, bodies shaking. But Earth was not finished. An hour into the grueling uphill climb, the ground betrayed them. A hidden sinkhole, softened by days of rain, collapsed without warning. Mira fell first, screaming as she vanished into darkness. Thorn dove after her, grabbing a thick root at the last instant. Zarek and Thrax seized his legs, straining against the mud. Below, Mira dangled above a writhing nest of fer-de-lance vipers, Earth's most aggressive venomous snakes. One strike meant death in minutes. Hold on. Thorn shouted. Slowly, agonizingly, they pulled her up. A viper struck as she rose, fangs grazing her already ruined tentacle. Mira screamed in raw agony but kept climbing. On solid ground, Thorn immediately cut the fang marks and sucked out what venom he could, spitting it into the mud. Old method. Better than nothing. Zarek stared in horrified awe. You put your mouth on poison. For her. Better than watching her die, Thorn growled. Night found them still short of the ridge. They sheltered in a small rocky overhang, fire blazing at the entrance. Thorn roasted the last of the jaguar meat. The silence was heavy until Mira spoke, voice weak. Your species does these things without technology. Every day. For thousands of years. Thorn nodded. We crawled out of the same mud you're bleeding into now. Learned every trick this planet throws. That's why when the galaxy needs the impossible done, they send humans. Thrax suddenly tensed. Movement outside. Dozens of eyes appeared at the overhang mouth, small, fierce, glowing with hunger. A pack of bush dogs, no bigger than medium hounds but relentless and coordinated like wolves. They had followed the blood trail for miles. Thorn stood, spear ready. We fight together or we die together. The battle was savage and short. Zarek impaled one with his sharpened stick. Mira whipped another away with her remaining strength. Thrax crushed two beneath his massive fists. Thorn's knife flashed in the firelight, ending the pack leader with a precise thrust. When the last dog fled yelping into the dark, the four survivors stared at each other across the carnage, breathing hard. Zarek's voice broke completely. I called your world primitive. I was a blind fool. Myra's crest glowed faintly. No. We were the fools. Earth does not need technology to kill. It is the ultimate technology. Thrax placed a heavy, bloodied hand on Thorn's shoulder. Lead on, Deathworlder. The beacon ridge glowed faintly on the horizon now, humanity's stubborn refusal to surrender even 1 kilometer of its nightmare planet. But the final test was coming. A much larger storm was building in the distance, and something far worse than bush dogs had begun stalking them through the trees. The final ascent to the beacon ridge became a war against the planet itself. Rain hammered down in solid sheets, transforming the slope into a river of sucking mud that clawed at their feet with every step. Elias Thorn led the battered group with a stubbornness forged in decades of Earth's cruelty. His clothes hung in bloodied tatters, ribs screaming from old and new wounds, but his eyes never wavered. Zarek was breaking. Infection raged through his body like wildfire. Every remaining scale burned with fever. He stumbled constantly, golden eyes glassy and unfocused. Myra's blackened tentacle had gone completely numb, the venom spreading faster than Thorn's crude treatments could fight. Her bioluminescent crest flickered like a dying ember. Thrax, despite cracked plates leaking dark blood with every breath, carried Mira when her strength failed completely. The stoic Draken's massive frame trembled under the combined weight of gravity and duty. 200 meters, Thorn rasped, voice raw. The beacon is inside a Faraday cage. Old military design. Should still work. Lightning tore the sky open, illuminating a nightmare. A monstrous anaconda, thicker than Thrax's torso and longer than their shuttle had been, was coiled around the beacon structure itself. It had claimed the high ground, massive head raised, tongue tasting their scent on the wind. Zarek laughed weakly, the sound edged with hysteria. Of course. The planet sends its champion to guard the prize. Thorn didn't hesitate. We need that beacon. I'll draw it off. You three get to the cage door. The emergency code is etched on my dog tags, use it if I fall. He charged forward through the downpour, knife flashing, shouting challenges to pull the serpent's attention. The anaconda struck like living lightning. Coils slammed Thorn against a tree trunk with bone-crushing force. Ribs snapped audibly. Pain exploded through his chest, but he drove the knife deep into rippling muscle again and again, twisting viciously. Mira, half-conscious, crawled toward the cage with Zarek's desperate help. Thrax hurled rocks and broken branches, roaring to distract the beast. For one terrible, eternal minute the ridge echoed with the sounds of a lone human fighting a primeval monster older than humanity. The anaconda finally released Thorn and slithered away into the storm, wounded but still deadly. Thorn collapsed, blood pouring from his side and mouth. Go. Now. They dragged him inside the Faraday cage just as another geomagnetic aftershock rolled through. The beacon hummed to life, weak, crackling, but transmitting. A single red light blinked on. Signal sent, Thorn wheezed, coughing blood. Rescue in 6 to 7 hours. Hold on. Outside, the storm reached apocalyptic fury. Trees toppled like matchsticks. The entire ridge began to slide in a slow, grinding groan of earth giving way. Mira curled beside him, crest dimming. Why, Elias? Why risk everything for 3 arrogant fools who mocked your world? Thorn's bloody smile was defiant. Because that's what humans do. We survive. And sometimes we drag others through hell with us. Zarek's voice trembled as fever clawed at him. Your species evolved in this nightmare. Every horror we faced was routine for your ancestors. We conquered galaxies with technology. You conquered a death world with nothing but will. Thrax nodded slowly, plates grinding. We came as students. Instead we learned humility in blood and mud. Hours dragged like centuries inside the shaking cage. Landslides thundered past them. The structure tilted dangerously. Thorn sang an old, rough earth survival song, off-key and defiant, to keep them conscious. Mira joined with a weak, ethereal alien melody. Zarek added his rasping harmony. Thrax kept rhythm by pounding the floor with a massive fist. The storm howled like it wanted to erase them from existence. Thorn's vision blurred. Stay awake. Help is coming. This planet tests. But it also rewards those who refuse to break. A final violent tremor shook the ridge. Part of the cage's foundation gave way. For one heart-stopping moment they hung on the edge of oblivion. Thrax wedged his body against the sliding wall, muscles bulging, buying them precious seconds. Then, at the edge of dawn, lights pierced the clouds, rugged human rescue shuttles, built for exactly this kind of nightmare. They descended through the chaos, med teams rappelling down in armored suits. Stabilization drugs flooded alien systems. Thorn was lifted carefully, vision fading as painkillers hit. The last thing he saw was Zarek gripping his hand with surprising strength. As the shuttle doors sealed against the roaring jungle, Zarek whispered, "When I return home, I will tell them the truth. Earth is not a death world because it is broken. It is a death world because it forges unbreakable things." Myra's crest flickered back to soft blue. And humans are the apex predators of that forge. Thrax saluted, old Earth style. "We are in your debt, Deathworlder." Thorn managed one last pained grin before unconsciousness took him. Lesson learned. The 3 aliens answered together, voices hoarse but firm. Earth does not forgive weakness. The shuttle climbed into the stormy sky, carrying 4 survivors who would never see the galaxy the same way again. The recovery ward aboard the orbital exchange station was quiet, sterile, and oppressively safe. White lights hummed softly. Filtered air carried no rot, no threat, no hunger. After the Amazon, it felt almost wrong. Elias Thorn lay propped in a reinforced bed, fresh scars pulling tight across his ribs and side with every breath. Monitors beeped steadily beside him, tracking the 3 cracked ribs, the internal bruising, and the infection Earth had gifted him as a souvenir. Through the observation glass he watched the 3 aliens. 14 hours of surgery. Human surgeons working alongside the best galactic tech. They had lived, but none would leave unmarked. Zarek entered first. His iridescent emerald scales had regrown, yet faint white lightning-like scars traced across his chest and arms where infection had nearly won. The haughty tilt of his head was gone. He stopped at the foot of the bed, claws flexing uncertainly. "Instructor Thorn." "Elias," he began, voice stripped of every trace of superiority. "I came to apologize. Not as a Vorian noble, but as a student who nearly died because of his arrogance. I mocked your world. I mocked you. And when the jungle took everything from us, you still fought for us." Thorn gave a tired half-smile. "You fought too, Zarek. That jaguar didn't die by itself. Apology accepted." Mira followed, one tentacle still wrapped in a regeneration cast, moving with careful grace. Her bioluminescent crest glowed steady azure now, no longer flickering on the edge of death. She approached and gently wrapped a slender tentacle around Thorn's wrist, a luminary gesture of deep respect. "I have spent every waking cycle reviewing human survival records," she said softly. "Your species should be extinct 10 times over. Instead you thrive. The contradiction is terrifying. And beautiful. I thought your world was primitive. Now I see it as the ultimate teacher." Thrax came last. The massive Draken's armored plates gleamed under fresh repairs, but one shoulder still bore a heavy bandage. He placed a huge, careful hand on the bed rail, dark eyes locking with Thorn's. "I will carry the memory of that jaguar's blood on my claws until the day I die," he rumbled. "You taught us the most valuable truth in the galaxy. Technology fails. Will does not. I am honored to have survived beside a true Deathworlder." The 3 aliens stood together, no longer detached observers but blooded survivors bound by shared hell. Zarek spoke for them all, voice gaining strength. "We have already filed a formal demand with the Exchange Council. This sanitized tour program ends today. We are proposing the Deathworld Initiative, mandatory for every elite exchange student from Softworlds. 2 full weeks. No technology. No safety fields. Real Earth. Real instructors like you." Myra's crest brightened with fierce determination. Let them feel 1.2 G crushing their organs. Let them taste real fear when the jungle hunts them. Only then will they understand why humans are chosen to lead first contact teams across the galaxy. Thrax nodded heavily. "When they ask why your kind are the apex predators among the stars, we will show them our scars and say, because they were born and forged in hell." Thorn chuckled, then winced as pain lanced through his ribs. "Just remember the first rule I taught you in that mud." All 3 answered in perfect unison, voices carrying the weight of hard-won wisdom: adapt or die. Later, after the visitors left, Thorn dimmed the lights and stared out the massive viewport. Earth turned slowly below, a beautiful blue-green marble wrapped in white clouds. From orbit, the Amazon looked peaceful, almost gentle. A green scar across the continent. Only those who had bled in it knew the truth. He touched the fresh scar along his ribs, tracing the jagged line the anaconda had gifted him. For a long moment he closed his eyes and heard it again, the roar of the river, the scream of the jaguar, the wet hiss of the giant serpent in the storm. The terror. The raw, beautiful fury of his homeworld. A soft notification chimed. The Exchange Council had already approved the Deathworld Initiative. First group of 20 alien students would arrive in 3 months. Thorn's name sat at the top of the instructor list. He smiled into the darkness. The galaxy would never be the same. Because 3 once arrogant aliens had looked into the jaws of a Deathworld and lived. They had learned what every human carried in their bones from birth: Earth didn't just survive its nightmares. It weaponized them. And humanity was the living proof, scarred, stubborn, unbreakable. Thorn whispered to the blue planet spinning below, voice rough with pride and pain, "Welcome to the real lesson, kids. Try to keep up." The stars outside seemed a little brighter. A little more dangerous. Earth had claimed 3 new voices to spread its legend across the cosmos.